I'm sorry if you had anything to do. Maybe you're at work. Maybe you had to study. No. Your attention needs to be here right now, because if I have to watch this crap, so do you.
How is it sexism when we have no barriers today? So we can pick what we want to pick.
Who doesn't have barriers?
Women don't have barriers?
Women, yeah. What's
We have
stopping
no
you? You can do
barriers.
whatever you want.
I can or you can?
What's stopping you?
I love the introduction for this, because if you can't tell, this woman is in a wheelchair. So she might be trying to articulate that she herself specifically can do certain things, but she's generalizing all women. So again, this is why I can't be in these debates, because I would have said something so snarky. Okay, so before I continue, there is definitely one man on this feminist panel, all right? But I have a feeling there's more than one man. I have this feeling. I could be wrong, but we'll see.
Should we mark this bad boy at all?
Oh my goodness.
Oh, here we go.
Hi, welcome everybody. I'm Liz Landers. I'm Vice News' chief political correspondent, and we are here today to talk about some of the biggest issues dividing women across the country. In other words, we're here to talk about feminism. First, I just want to say, we know we can't represent everybody's views, but we did try our best to bring together a diverse group of women today. In today's polarized world, is feminism dead? I saw your hand.
I think that depends on the definition of feminism. I strongly think that feminism is more of an action than an identity. I would say it's uplifting all women, in which case it's very alive. At the same time, if we do follow that definition, feminism has splintered off into so many different areas that you can look at people like Sheryl Sandberg, who say you should just get another nanny if you feel oppressed. And if we're talking about that kind of feminism, yeah, it's pretty dead.
Yeah, I mean, as long as the human race exists, feminism will never be dead. There's something that we're always going to have to strive and work towards to make sure that there's equality. So feminism is not dead.
Okay, if we're talking in the perspective of America, I want to know if there's any feminists in here. What equality do you not have at this very moment? I have to emphasize America, because if you go to other parts of the world, yeah, there are women that do not get the same rights as men. Aside from that, if we're just talking about America, what exactly is there to fight for in terms of feminism? What is it?
I don't know that it can die. As long as there's power and oppression, there will be people fighting for equity. And until that somehow goes away, feminism is alive and well.
That's your problem. You're fighting for equity. Why? You should fight for equality, which you have achieved. So now you want equity. You want equal outcomes. That's not going to happen. Your struggles are going to be different from someone else's struggles. And you just got to go through it. That's life. No one said life was going to be easy.
I think feminism isn't actually about equality. It's about equality when it benefits us. I think feminism, it's really about women wanting special privileges and treatment at the expense of men often. And I think it's alive and well, sadly.
I think feminism is also alive and well. There are different kinds of feminism, right? Like, that is obvious. And for me, as a womanist, as a Black feminist, right?
The fuck is a womanist? What is that?
Someone who's really thinking about human rights, dignity, right? Equity, right? As long as that need isn't met, we're still gonna keep fighting.
I'd say it's alive and well. I'd say that it's also very nuanced, and I think what it looks like is going to differ depending on where you are in the world. For me, I just see it as a lens, which isn't necessarily antagonistic or protagonistic. It's just a useful tool.
Similar to what Pearl just said, I find that a lot of feminist ideology and thought today feels more of like a supremacist movement rather than something that is supposed to be advancing the goals of equality. I don't think that we can really term what's going on as feminism because it looks so different to, I think, the earlier feminist movements. So in that way, I would say it's taken its last breaths of life. It's dying.
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely think
Excited.
it's getting more and more radicalized, for sure. So it's definitely still alive.
I think I'll preface and say that I don't know so much about modern Western feminism, and there might be a lot of terms that I don't know, like political jargon and stuff. But I believe in the advancement of women, whoever considers themselves a woman. I think there's a deficiency in society.
Okay, so what is feminism if you're also including men? Then it's not feminism. You can't say whoever identifies as a woman and then talk about feminism. These people are so woke that they don't even realize they're contradicting themselves.
So it's deeply rooted that feminism has always existed. I think America's a little obsessed with themselves, and it's like always feminism is rooted in America. And like, oh, white women started it. And it's kind of offensive because for thousands of years, women have been dying for their rights.
I think as a Black woman specifically, when you talk about feminism, yeah, the mainstream first thing you think about is a certain type of feminism that tends to exclude still, even today, even with intersectional feminism, exclude African-American women, and it's always kind of done that. And also like, upper middle class white women has predominantly been the face of what we quote unquote consider feminism.
I think feminism is attempting to say, okay, the first thing we agree on is that there are barriers and friction to what I need and what I want based on the fact that I'm a woman. What it ignores is that, and what privilege is that you may not have to think that being a woman and being a Black woman and being a Black woman who has a disability, for example, impacts you further. You have more barriers, you have more friction, you are less able to get what you want. You're undervalued in a way that's like, okay, well, you know.
That sounds like, okay, she's talking about, okay, so if you are Black, you're disabled, you're a woman, you have more friction and more barriers, that sounds like insecurity and projection. Because I have met Black, female, disabled individuals that do not claim they have so many roadblocks in their life. And even if they did, let's just go with that argument. Even if they did, who cares? That's called life. We ourselves, human beings, are privileged to be alive. And are we really going to sit here and debate who has obstacles of which are more severe? Because again, we're just looking at life in general. Life is difficult. Everyone is going to go through obstacles. The most important thing is how are you going to overcome those obstacles? To me, personally, it's a waste of time to sit there and complain that everyone else around you is more privileged because they were born in a different body and somehow your life is harder as a result. The amount of time that you could spend figuring out how to overcome those obstacles, I think would be more reasonable than complaining.
You know, that's life. That's what I mean by equity, and that we're able to, without friction, all get the same needs met.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. See,
Okay, so equity, if you don't know what equity is, whenever you hear that, that is a communist term, all right? Someone asked me this not too long ago, what do I think about all these social justice movements, feminism included? Every social justice cause, it is based off of victimization. Without convincing people that they are a victim, you do not have that specific cause. So when she's saying equity, she's basically saying everyone else needs to take care of me because I am oppressed and I am entitled to having people take care of me. But that's not the reality. Your government isn't responsible for you. Other people aren't responsible for you. Activism isn't responsible for you. God says that you should always help your neighbor and help the poor. But he also says be a cheerful giver, right? So here's the difference. As you have the feminists and you have all these wokies that are saying we are owed this thing, you should help us, tax them higher, tax the rich, right? And that's different from, I'm going to help you out of the kindness of my heart and not because someone gaslit me and taxed me harder to make me feel like I am responsible for someone else's life. It's not how it works.
See, I disagree with that. I think life is easier if you're a girl. Actually,
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of benefits that men don't have. I'm not going to speak anything to race. I'm just talking about gender specifically, it's usually like an excuse. Like, honestly, I think as a girl, you have equal opportunity in the world. I think there's benefits. Like, for example, we have quotas for women in specific jobs that are given to us that aren't given to men. So yeah, I would say it's easier.
In some aspects, I'm going to agree with her on that, right? Everyone, I would say in general, people go through obstacles. That's a given. Everyone's going to deal with adversity in their life. Duh, it's life. But in some ways, I do believe women have it easier, which is contrary to what feminists believe. Like, think about this for a second. If you just think of the conversation behind abortion and how women are like, it is my body, my choice, right? So that means this woman can go out, have unprotected sex, or just have sex when they know that they can't afford a baby. And then someone else's tax dollars is going to pay for them to kill their baby, pay for their mistake. Well, children aren't mistakes, but you get what I'm saying. Like, go out, have all your promiscuous sex you want, and then someone else is going to take care of the bill. If we look at the way that society treats women and men in terms of mental health, right? Women are free to just be crazy. Do whatever, all right? Let your emotions run wild. But what is the expectation of men? Suck it up. Be a man, right? There's no time for your feelings, which I think that men should be strong, right? Everyone should be strong. But that's the reality. That is the narrative in society, is men are expected to not show those feelings and emotions, but women, go ahead, be as emotional as you want. It's totally fine.
Being a girl.
Just from a viewpoint over here, though, it seems there's a lot of pretty privilege in what you're saying, and that you're white and you present.
Do you think I'm pretty? Thank you.
I think that you present in a way that beauty standards have accepted. And so
they call me ugly on the internet all the time. They be roasting me daily, I swear to God.
I don't mean to say I think you're gorge. I just mean that there are a certain value that we give to certain bodies.
I mean, let's also dig into why these quotas exist and why these, what you're calling
because
privileges
we want
exist.
special treatment.
No, it's because there have historically and presently in most jobs been fewer women, and because of sexism.
Okay. Well, hold on. Okay, so let me rewind a little bit. Let me just rewind just a smidge. Just a smidge.
You present in a way that beauty standards have accepted.
Hold on.
And so
they call me ugly on the internet all the time. They be roasting me.
They call me ugly on the internet too all the time.
I don't mean
it's
to
a
say
thing.
I think you're gorge. I just mean that there are a certain value that we give to certain bodies.
I mean, let's also dig into why these quotas exist and why these, what you're calling
because
privileges
we want
exist.
special treatment.
No, it's because there have historically and presently in most jobs been fewer women.
In most jobs, there are fewer women. Okay, well, let's unpack that. You can't just look at a field and say, every person here is a man. It must be sexism. It must be misogyny. Are women actually applying for those roles? Here's the other aspect. This person, I guess this person's name is Eli. This is a man. All right? So are we really going to seriously have a conversation about they don't have enough women in a specific field while a man is taking those roles? If you're saying that men are taking roles from women and that women are underrepresented in a field, then why are you presenting yourself as a woman? I was checking out Eli's social media. Eli is a man, but Eli is getting their PhD in feminist studies. So, again, if we're complaining that there aren't enough women in a particular field, let's look at the qualifications needed to be successful in that field. Do you really think feminist studies is something that is in high demand in corporate America? Do you think that is a skill set that most businesses are looking for when they're hiring? You take stupid courses to get useless degrees and then complain that women are underrepresented. I am confusion.
And because of sexism.
How is it sexism when we have no barriers today? So we can pick
has
what
no
we want to
barriers?
pick.
It doesn't have barriers.
Women don't have barriers?
Women, yeah. What's
We have
stopping
no
you? You can do
barriers.
whatever you want.
I
stopping
can
you?
or you can?
What's stopping you? As a woman.
As a woman.
See,
That ignores a lot that I'm a woman with a disability. So there's a lot stopping me that you don't have to think about.
Well,
Okay, then you could have said that. As a disabled person, I have barriers. Well, yeah, obviously, but there are ways to work around it. It might be a little bit more inconvenient depending on what it is exactly you're trying to do. But to say that you, as a disabled woman, means double the amount of oppression is nonsense.
As I said before, I'm speaking about women. I'm not.
You're speaking for yourself.
You're speaking as an able-bodied
white woman.
I
presents white.
Of course, there's going to be other barriers if you're disabled. I'm sure. Like I'm talking about as a woman.
So you're just going to ignore
white
the
women
pay
have it
gap.
easier. Yes, I would agree.
What?
You're just going to ignore the pay gap, regulation over body.
Sir, the pay gap, stop selecting courses in college that pay less. Have you looked into that statistic? Like, if you look into the breakdown of what women tend to get degrees in versus what men tend to get degrees in, if they even go to college, because guess what? College isn't necessary to live a successful life. I never went to college. I'm doing okay. I'm not rich. I'm doing fine. There is no such thing as gender pay gap because you're not looking at the bigger picture as to why women are paid less. It's not just about sexism. And again, this is what feminism does, is it victimizes people and it convinces them that they are oppressed. And it's because of the evil white cis men and the patriarchy and it's everyone else that's oppressing me, instead of the fact that perhaps women are motivating themselves to actually pursue those fields, or they're going to school to learn useless skills, if that's what you want to call them.
Pay gap has been disproven and debunked
pay gap doesn't
endlessly,
exist.
my friend.
It doesn't. It's the industries that women pick.
Let's talk about it.
There's a pay gap, but it's because women don't want to do the hardest industries.
Simple. Boom. That's it. That's it. That's the reality of it. Is look at this woman. She's closing her eyes. She's, I can't even, lady. It is because women, if you look at some of the hardest jobs, right? It's usually manual labor. Okay, I guess if hard job would be subjective, but let's say the most dangerous jobs, who do you think usually fill those roles, men or women? A gender studies degree isn't going to help you be successful in a role that is physically dangerous.
I don't think it's that simple. I think that's an oversimplification. I think the fact of the matter is that women structure their lives differently to men.
Yes.
Men don't give birth. Men don't have to carry pregnancies. Men don't have to be the primary caregiver most of the time. Women also don't hold jobs for as long as men do. They often will stop and start. They'll go back into work. They'll take time off. They'll take part-time jobs. The way that men work and women work are astronomically different. And to try to say that they're comparable is where this issue comes from. They're not comparable.
Two things. First of all, let's dig into why they think that they should take these jobs, which is societal sexism. And then also, Department of Labor, all statistics, at least speaking in the US, have found that when compared for the same jobs, there still is a pay gap, particularly when it pertains to race.
Because 60% of women have never asked for a raise. So how can you complain about your pay if you don't ask?
Why are they not?
Wait, what happened?
Okay, so here's the other thing about the gender pay gap conversation that I absolutely hate. When you walk into a job and you apply for that job and you propose your salary, or they propose a salary to you, and you agree on it, you have no right to complain that there is a gender pay gap. You accepted that rate. It goes for any other conversation. If we're talking about white privilege and how white people make more money, you accepted that rate. You had the ability to negotiate if you really didn't want it. All right. Now, here's the other layer is, let's say, no, they don't want to give you a raise. They don't want to up your salary. You have the ability to walk out of there and start your own career, make your own job. Why can't you do that? That's what I did. And I didn't start doing content creation because I wanted more money. If I wanted consistent income, I would have stayed with corporate America, but I wanted more freedom to do what I wanted to do. And if that's the case, if that's what you're looking for, more flexibility with you in a workplace, making a certain amount of money, then you know what? Maybe you should go to school for business instead of feminism. Perhaps. Maybe.
When women ask for raises, sorry, I've been wanting to say something, but I want to be respectful. I don't want to interrupt people, and I want to let them finish their thoughts.
Jump in,
But
go through the wall.
It is a very privileged label, right, to be able to say that you're feminist, right? And I say that because I come from a working class background of Dominican immigrant parents. My mother would not necessarily identify as a feminist. I look to my mother, and I do think of her as a feminist. A lot of my ideas and my empowerment comes from seeing her like survive and put food on the table. When I'm thinking about feminism, I'm always thinking about who's not part of the conversation.
Okay, I want to stop really quick because she said that she looks up to her mother and I look up to my mother, right? And she's saying that, you know, she's trying to survive and put food on the table. Is that feminism, or is that just what you should do when you have children? That sounds like good parenting. Why are we providing labels for the basic things that women should be doing?
What are the barriers? How do we think about equity? How do we think about self-empowerment and agency and having a voice, right? And having choice, and thinking about our basic human rights, education, access to health, homes, like having
Homes? Housing is a human right? No, it's not. Who said that someone else needs to take care of you? When was this agreed upon? Tell me. This is so entitled.
bread, having food, and those things are very important, right? And they're at the crux, right, of what a lot of us here know that we need. It's like there are the barriers, right, that we constantly ignore that are very much systemic and microaggressive, right? We see them and experience them every day.
Like what in the U.S.?
So,
like what?
What would you like to know an example of?
No. You're saying that there's so many systemic things and it's oppressing us. Tell me, if that comes out of your mouth, it must mean that it's something pretty significant. If you have to ask, what would you like to know? Then maybe it's not that big of a problem.
I know you said that there's like barriers. I want to know what barriers in the U.S. today as a woman.
Well, as a woman or as a woman of color?
See, here we go.
Let's be specific.
Here we go.
As a woman. I said
And we
as
don't.
a woman.
Well, no,
Here we go.
I can't answer as a woman.
I
'cause I'm
just feel
not
like your
a woman,
question is
right?
kind
You're
of
not answering at
hostile when
all.
You're like, there are no barriers to what I want. Congratulations. That means you have a privilege where you're not facing any friction, and that's showing. And I feel like it's
If you listen to this, no one is giving an example. She asked for an example, and instead of providing that, you're privileged and it's great that you don't have these barriers, and give me an example. Why is this so difficult?
American, you're very privileged.
I'm
not ignoring that.
More like a basic level of what the feminist movement is when it comes to just being born a woman, right? Physically, pound for pound, we are born as women and we have less lean muscle mass than men. So there are issues of violence and assault and stuff like that. And so therefore, there are policies, there are things to help women physically, like, for example, I believe being able to carry a firearm and being able to use that safely to defend yourself against men who are born naturally with more muscle mass than a woman.
I keep hearing the term equity. What would a world that has equity look like? Like, would it be 50% of everyone in the same jobs? Would it be like prison, 50%? That's
equality.
50%. So what does equity look like?
So equity is generally described as a state of fairness because historically a lot of people have been arguing for equality, but what does that give us? Like 0.5 of the 1% being women. This doesn't really do anything for us. And so people have talked about equity instead, which is instead of sameness, it's fairness. And this would mean that we remove systemic barriers to engage in society, not just for women, but also for everyone.
So you didn't say anything. You said a lot of jargon and buzzwords, but what are you saying? What would society with equity look like? It's word salad.
Which barriers?
Those barriers that you don't believe in.
What does it do for you to have a bunch of ramps in your life? It doesn't do shit. I need those ramps, right?
Can we stick to male versus female? That's my question. So I'm thinking male versus female.
But my feminism includes ability, it includes
but
race.
My question is
You
for
guys
women.
can talk.
Women versus men. Like what barriers do we need removed? Because that's my statement. I'm not stating anything else. I'm stating women versus men.
Look at her face. She's like, this privileged white lady. Oh, that's so funny.
I think it's mindset holding them back a lot, because if you want to be in a competitive world and compete, you have to have the right mindset. And I think a lot of people blame their lack of confidence or what society tells them for the reason that they're not achieving what they need to achieve, when that's not the case. You have to have the mindset of achieving, because the men who built the world had the mindset of building it. So the women who want to engage and build that further, they need to have that same mindset.
I agree. It's a mind game. All of these social justice causes, feminism included, would be unnecessary if people learned the mind game. You have to apply yourself.
I don't think we do. I think that's like assuming that we all want to be capitalist babies.
Right.
I think that men are not well adjusted in the society and women are not trying to re-embody what they have built for us. I think that like what we're forgetting is a very important detail, which is just like human respect and dignity.
Yeah,
and not asking people to prove what their experience is and to prove to you. Like, it is like such conservative thinking to say like, I don't understand, explain it to me, versus just saying, I don't understand and let me respect what you are saying.
I'm respecting wherever your starting point. I'm respecting that. I'm really respecting that. I'm saying that if you don't have the mindset you can even achieve it, you're never going to even try. So it's never...
achieve what? Like, what are we talking about?
Achieve
Because I feel like you've
a fair
projected
world.
this like
No,
capitalist ideology on every woman.
Achieve whatever it is you're looking for, equality, equity. But what I'm saying is women in the feminist space and a lot of these other spaces, we don't acknowledge that we have to take the initiative. We have to take the action. We have to have the mindset. We have to demand those things.
Hold on a second. Okay. So, as she said, you need the mindset, right? And this woman, this woman's very angry. Okay. So she's saying basic form of respect is not questioning what someone else's experiences are. Your experiences, while they are valid, is irrelevant. It's unfortunate that these women have gone through certain experiences, because that's what happens to everyone. You go through trauma and you deal with it and you just overcome it. So while, okay, fine, you went through it, what's the next step? Because you know what happens is if you don't focus on how do you move forward, that doesn't involve having the entire society revolve around me and cater to me, what you're going to end up with is generational trauma. I hear this often in like the Black community, where because of chattel slavery and Jim Crow, Black parents pass that trauma to their kids, and it becomes a cycle, a continuing cycle of victimhood. And the reason for that is because they're so focused on what happened, oftentimes things that they themselves never experienced. And they're so focused on that instead of saying, okay, it happened. What are the plans to move forward? Aside from asking for reparations. Look at her. Look at her. Poor Sydney. Poor Sydney.
I don't understand how we're getting so off topic. This is about feminism today, whereas everybody wants to make this about their individual, here are all the multitude of other things that factor into my person. Great. This is about feminism. It's about womanhood. I understand that all of you have your own individual experiences and the other things that feed into you as a person. That's perfectly fine. But this is where intersectionality falls off the planet and loses, I would argue, probably the vast majority of people, including me. I'm not even a feminist. I don't give a crap about feminists arguing amongst themselves about who's the most victimized, but this is annoying to listen to. I honestly I don't understand anything anybody's even trying to get at.
Look, I just want to say that I don't think equity and this concept of competition can't coexist with each other. Equity is building more facilities for people who need them. It is recognizing that there are holes in the market and there's opportunities for women and feminine expansive people and meeting those opportunities. I think equity can buoy the pre-existing system that we live in a good way.
And this is where we're going to get to what I think the real feminist arguments are based off of policy. And abortion is the biggest one.
How many of you would identify as pro-choice? Let's do a show of hands for pro-choice.
I feel like pro-choice is pro-life, though. Yeah.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just evaluating who has their hands up. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay, and folks who identify as pro-life? Why do you identify as each?
You've gone from legal, safe, rare to, yeah, I'm so proud, let me beatbox in front of a Planned Parenthood, yeah, I got murder on my mind. The fact that it's celebrated that murdering children, especially in late-term pregnancies, is celebrated, that people are so proud of themselves for mutilating a fetus is just, it blows my mind. And I don't think that you need to be pro-life to even take that stand.
You said late-term pregnancy.
Yes.
A lot of abortions do not happen.
I made
in
the
late-term
distinction.
Excuse you. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. In Rhode Island, you can abort up to 9 months. Yes, they do. And I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure there was legislation that either got passed or is in the process of passing even after the fact the baby is born. If a baby had a failed abortion, they would just leave the baby out on the table and not care for it and just pretty much let it die off on its own.
I made the distinction specifically because lots of people still celebrate. There are people who, when the laws were passed actually here in New York, they said, yes, great, yes, I love the fact
but
that...
you need to ask about what are people celebrating?
They're celebrating the fact that they can have sex with a bunch of people and then have no accountability for that. That's what they're celebrating. Yay, I'm free. I can go pursue my career. I can get a degree in feminist studies because I aborted my child. Like, it doesn't matter what justification you use for that. That sounds demented.
Right? They're celebrating access.
Well,
We're not
well, that's
celebrating
okay.
killing kids. Like, that's
But
not what
then
it
why-
is.
well, see, this is what I'm saying.
So, like,
When-
here's the thing. When we're talking about access to reproductive health and to abortion rights, right, and to being pro-choice, listen, that's your body, you do you.
The child
If
is
you
not your
decide-
body.
A zygote.
The child is not your body. Yes, that's also. But listen to what this woman is saying. It's about having access to reproductive health. What exactly are you reproducing when you are aborting your baby? What is healthy about that?
It's so scary for me to hear people calling like guns the biggest equalizer for women, but taking their choices away from them at a policy level.
Why is that?
Having a gun is an equalizer.
It is.
Having rights is an equalizer.
Yeah, that's
Having
a right.
choice is
Right,
an equalizer.
just like a gun right.
And in this country,
41 forms
the
of birth
policies
control.
that are pushed to continue perpetuating patriarchy and anti-women, like taking the autonomy away from women.
You don't even know what you're saying.
It is heartbreaking to see women pushing that propaganda.
No, it is heartbreaking to see women not take self-accountability and not be responsible with their bodies and instead say everything is about pleasure and liberation and freedom and whatever. People that are so open about everything that they do, they have no barriers, they end up becoming enslaved to those things, right? There is a reason, for example, why a lot of women that get abortions done have gotten previous abortions done. It's like you become a slave to the lack of self-accountability, right? And so I think Pearly Things said on here, there's like 48 different forms of birth control. I think you need to go back farther than that and talk about why is it that society, because everyone here wants to talk about how cultural standards, society, okay? This whole thing about abortion, it wouldn't even be a conversation if people saved themselves for marriage. That's such a, oh, clutch my pearls. How dare you, Vanessa? How dare you insinuate or suggest that women should save themselves before marriage and then men should also not be sleeping around with whoever. That's really what we're talking about here, because you're looking at sex as a form of pleasure instead of a function of procreation. When you think like that, inevitably you're going to end up in this conversation about abortion. If you looked at it in the opposite way, then women would understand, hey, even if I used 3 condoms, took birth control, and did whatever other things I needed to do to prevent this pregnancy, and you still get pregnant, if you were looking at it from the perspective of procreation as opposed to pleasure, you would be fine with the fact that you got pregnant. That's the problem. And I'll even go a little bit deeper than this. Whenever I talk about how women, it would be more logical to be more selective about who they have sex with and, hey, just be abstinent altogether, right? Whenever I talk about that, they'll all say, what about men? Aside from the small percentages of reported rapes, women have the final say. It is at the woman's discretion to say yes or no. Again, feminism is not taking responsibility. This is how I see feminism.
It's all brainwash. Like you.
Oh, it's brainwash because you don't agree with me.
No,
so therefore
I've been
I'm
brainwashed. I have lived deeply institutionalized.
Ma'am,
I have lived under Islam.
I'm not interested in any of that. Like, there's no like
You're not
guilt
interested
for
in
me.
human
No, I'm not interested in like
living.
thinking that like women are doing this really bad thing. Like in my religion, abortion is actually allowed. If the woman needs it, she's allowed, because you know it's very interesting how like fundamental America is. Like fundamental.
You're bouncing around topics. Stay on topic.
Like in religion, this is a very
conservative
basic
thinking.
scientific human right.
You don't have to be religious and believe in God to know that murder is bad. You don't have to be religious and believe in God to know that the function of sex is to procreate. Pleasure is a bonus. And it makes sense. This woman here with the bullet earrings, I kind of like those. Those are cool. Get this sense of wanting to uplift black people. I kind of get a little bit of like a slight blacktivist vibe. I don't know much about this woman, but it also makes sense. So I'm going to go into a different topic really quick. When people say, on the one hand, Black Lives Matter, we got to be anti-racist, but then they also say we are pro-choice, it doesn't make any sense. Who do you think, if we're looking at race, who do you think aborts their babies more? What race? Why are Planned Parenthood predominantly in areas that have a lot of black people living there?
We're also talking about people not having access to abortion clinics where they're doing the things themselves and they die, right? We're also talking about women in the hospital who are pregnant, who have chosen to stay with their pregnancy and have issues at hospitals, and hospitals that are like, oh, no, we don't do that. Listen, for whatever reason, you don't need to explain it to anybody, but a lot of times when we're talking about access to reproductive health, for me, I'm thinking about Black, Indigenous, people of color, particularly women and girls who are working class, who do not have even access to like proper sexual education. It's the oppressive state of saying, I will force you to have a child even against your own will, right? Especially when you're thinking about women and girls.
You're gonna, forcing a woman to have a child against her own will. Was she forced to have sex that resulted in having that child? Oftentimes, and I have not done my research on this women, but oftentimes, a lot of people that parrot these woke scripts that you're hearing right now, they tend to be on board with the sexual liberation narrative and the pleasure and all that stuff. This dude over here, Eli, I did go on his social media and I saw him promoting, I don't know if it was a vibrator or a butt plug or both or something like that. So on the one hand, you're saying, yes, pro-choice, have the ability to murder your baby, and then wonder why there are so many people that are opposed that. Well, hold on a second. You are also in the same breath encouraging people to embrace pleasure and be more in tune with their sexuality and all that stuff, and not thinking that, hey, maybe that is a contributing factor to why we're even having this conversation.
Who would be forced to have these children who are already living in very traumatized and scarce situations. You want to ask about barriers? That's a barrier right there.
Force women to have a pregnancy when children are already living in scared, traumatic situations. I know a lot of people that have came from scary, abusive, traumatic situations, and they love the fact that they have the privilege to be alive. So are you saying that we should encourage women to keep their babies only when they are financially stable and they're not living in poverty and stuff like that? Are you saying that people that don't have the ability to afford a child, that means that we should abort those babies? Is the value of life determined on how much money is in someone's bank account? Because if that's the problem, if poverty is the issue that we're talking about here, or the fact that parents are living in traumatic environments, right? If this is what we're talking about, then why is that woman having sex to begin with?
Women in poverty aren't able to access the way that rich women are, and no matter what happens, rich women are gonna keep getting abortions, and people in poverty are gonna not. And the choice, opening it up, the overruling is marginally affecting people of color, people in poverty, way more than people who are going to get access to those abortions.
Again, we're bringing race into this abortion thing. I'm sorry, guys, I keep pausing, but when people talk about hurting children, I'm not a parent, but that shit pisses me off. Like, I cannot understand how grown adults can sit here and advocate for slaughtering babies. What they're talking about, because they keep bringing up race into this, as I said, black women abort their babies more. So essentially what you're saying is let's promote eugenics, because that's what's happening. If we look at the bigger picture, we look at the mainstream entertainment within the black community, what do you see? Gangster hip hop. You see over-sexualized hip hop. Have sex with whoever you want and kill this person because they slept with your baby mama or whatever, right? It's all degenerate stuff on top of abort your baby because you live in poverty or whatever the case may be. So that is literally voluntary eugenics is what you're advocating for.
Actually incorrect. You're the misquote. There's actually more abortions for people in poverty. It's just at a lower rate.
Why do you think that abortion has been so tied up in this feminism conversation?
It's all just social structure set up around bodies. So if not all women are able to have babies, but it's about the barriers and value that we give to these specific bodies, right? And so if abortion happens in a woman's body, that's why this conversation is coming up.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
You said that not all women are able to have babies or pregnancies. Are you saying, meaning like an infertility issue?
A number of reasons. There's all kinds of reasons that not all women are having babies.
Pearl, I saw your hand up. Yeah.
I think women want to sleep around and not have any consequence for it.
Hell yeah, we do.
Yeah!
Okay, there you go. And they're celebrating it. Are you high? Are you all cray-cray?
Nani?
Bro. Wow. So they admitted, yes, we do want to just sleep around and have no consequences. There it is. There it is. This feminist is a farce. All it is I do not want to take responsibility for the decisions that I make in my life. And I want everyone else to take care of me because of the bad decisions I've made in my life. The debate should have ended right there.
Instead of, taking personal accountability and being on birth control, they just want to do whatever they want.
You say this like it's a bad thing.
Yeah, it almost sounds like you said.
You say it like it's a bad thing. I do want to sleep around with whoever I want and have no accountability for my decisions. Why do you say it like it's a bad thing? Because feminism would disappear if you took accountability. So it almost sounds like if one was to take self-accountability for their actions, the conversation surrounding abortion would go away. Wow! But that would mean a lot of people, a lot of activists would be out of a job.
Also ask, do you have any care to empower women, or is disempowering women part of your life?
Do you care to empower women? Yes, we are trying to empower you to close your legs. Okay? That is so empowering. Be more cautious about who you decide to allow into your body. Go a little bit further. Empower you to have the self-control to not want to sleep around and then complain because you got pregnant and now someone is forcing you to give birth, which is a natural occurrence, that happens when you have sex. My goodness.
You see, this is shame, insult, guilt, need to be right. Okay.
Yeah.
Why is it empowering to sleep around?
No,
Why
what
is
I'm
that
saying
empowering?
is, like, I feel like you do,
Why?
like, take, like, the way
Why?
you speak on women is very sort of like, women just don't want to do this. Women just don't have this. Women just wanted this.
Maybe I should
and I
change my
wonder
term. Maybe
why
I should
you have
say-
so much, like, hatred towards
I don't-
women.
I
She didn't, nope. Answer the question. Why does anyone think it is empowering to sleep around? We can go a little bit deeper. What is empowering about showing your body off to the world and having like the OnlyFans and the porn and all that stuff, which is so prevalent in today's society? Why is it that the more sexualized a woman becomes, she's more empowered.
Where does that root in? It
I
sounds
don't hate
like
women.
you do.
I am a woman.
That doesn't mean you don't have
I could be
self-hate.
black and still be internalized racism.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I'm saying specific things that you're saying, like women don't want to work, women don't want to this, women want to sleep around. Where did you learn these belief systems from?
From this conversation. Hello? Did you not just hear? Yes, liberate. We don't want responsibility. Yes. Did you not just hear that? Where did you get that from? This conversation right here. It is more empowering to be disciplined and practice self-control.
Okay, the question was, why does abortion keep getting brought up? 40% of women that have had abortions have had 2 or more. 40%.
Good for
so,
them.
So what does that say to me? That means you're using.
So you are applauding the fact that women lack self-control. They lack personal responsibility. You are applauding the fact that women make bad decisions. And you have convinced yourself that you are advocating for the benefit of women. Does that make any sense?
Using it as a form of birth control, and they don't track the 60%.
What kind of abortions?
Can you let me finish? They don't track the 60% to say who in the future has abortion. So to me, it's like, why are they dying so hard for abortion? They want to sleep around with no consequences, even though you have 41 forms of birth control.
Who does that benefit? I don't think that benefits women. I think actually that benefits men because it means that men can have sex with you without consequence. It means that you can sleep with whoever you feel like, great, but there are consequences because women are the ones who get pregnant and carry babies and give birth.
It's very binary version of
yes,
sex.
because sex is binary, but please let me finish my point.
Oh, God.
It's tricking women into thinking that aborting a pregnancy, terminating a pregnancy is something to be celebrated, when in reality, for a lot of women, especially those who are doing it under duress, say that they've been raped or that, you know, in the small circumstances where something really traumatic has happened to them, that's a medical decision. Or say that they're miscarrying and then they have to, you know, have an assisted termination. That's a medical procedure. It's not a celebration of, oh, look at the.
The idea, the sort of like moral setting of that it needs to be rare is, I think the delineation between that's a medical abortion and that's like a fun abortion.
This is, okay, this woman, I'm trying to be as nice as humanly possible here. As a feminist, I'm not a feminist, but if I were, if I were a feminist and I hypothetically advocated for the ability to murder your kid because it's reproductive health, let's just say for the sake of the argument that I believed in these things, the goal should be, how do we get to a time where we don't need abortion anymore? Because it's a supply and demand.
It's really interesting because they're all medical. It's all a medical procedure. And so no matter what you're doing, going in there and getting it, like it's not like, oh, you're only allowed 2. It's just like, you should just be able to get a medical procedure done when it's something that you need done.
No. You know what you need? To close your legs. That's what you need to do, okay? Because if you're saying the argument here, or the example is, oh, you could only have 2. By the first one, the first abortion that you have, you should reevaluate what you're doing with your body and reevaluate the decisions that you made to get you in that predicament. I know of someone that had 5 abortions. 5. They clearly didn't learn. There needs to be, and I hate using this term because I don't think a baby is a consequence at all, but there needs to be some consequence there. If you only allow safety nets in society, you're going to soften society. You're going to make them dependent on the government, on other people, to take care of them because they're not learning how to take care of themselves.
Did the Dobbs decision make anybody here sort of rethink abortion access, reproductive health care?
It's anti-woman, right? It does not center people to have that voice for themselves and their own decisions, right? It is a barrier, right?
It's
if we
giving
want to put it
more.
that way.
It's giving more agency to women because it's moving it back to the state level. So locally,
But why would the state have
locally,
the ability
women
to tell me what to do?
Because it
Locally, the
doesn't
women
multitudes
have
of
that
different
power.
areas. If you take out the viewpoint that life begins at conception, which is a really big defining principle for both the pro-life crowd, who very, very, vehemently believe that, and then obviously a lot of the pro-choice crowd do not believe that. Taking that out of the equation, you do not have just whatever kind of autonomy you want as a person. It's regardless of male or female. You can't just have free run to do whatever the hell you want. That's not how society operates. So
At no point do I have the right to tell anyone in this room what they should or should not do with their bodies.
But it's not about your body.
It's not about
me
respecting.
I have a question here.
It's not about your body. It's about the kid's body. I don't care what you do with your body.
It's my body, right? We're talking about my body.
You're talking about.
Jordan, I saw your hand creep up.
I really hate the fact that this debate is heavily edited. I don't know if you guys can tell. And that to me is very telling about how the full conversation actually went. Because Vice is a giant propaganda machine. They're trying to present all of these pro-feminists in a positive light, and it makes them look worse because they're editing it. What are you hiding?
The Dobbs decision for me reinforced how important it is that we approach these issues from a cultural perspective, because it reinforces something that I have told many of my colleagues and peers in the past, which is that so long as you lack a cultural consensus, any issue can become a political football that can be decided by another election cycle. And so long as there is no strong consensus, I would expect this to be our reality going forward, these extremely vitriolic and aggressive conversations until there's another miraculous consensus that brought about Roe v. Wade. But what it more or less reinforced for me is that we're going to have more of these difficult conversations.
I want to talk about transgender issues. Should trans women be included in feminist conversations? How about in women's spaces?
Yes, they're women.
How about no?
No, they're not. They're men. Why are we talking about trans issues when this conversation is about women?
Pearl,
Trans women are women.
Oh.
So I want to come at this from the
Oh,
position of
man.
an athlete.
Oh, Jesus.
So I
man.
play semi-pro basketball, semi-pro volleyball. So when it comes to like athletic spaces, I don't think that trans women should be allowed into athletic spaces because I don't think it's a fair. I think as female athletes, we work so incredibly hard for the little opportunity there is in women's sports.
Would this be a barrier for you?
There's no barrier. There's less opportunity in some industries.
That's what
one
a
of them.
barrier is.
No. That's not a barrier. Are you listening? Are you listening? One door closes, another one opens. If you open it, how bad do you want it? That's an obstacle. You overcome it. It's not a barrier.
It's not, no. It's
That's
based
what
on the
friction
market.
means.
Okay.
Hold
it's based
on,
it's
guys,
based-
let's-
Okay. So again, we work very hard for the little opportunity there is in the space because we're not as entertaining as the men. Sorry, we're just not. And so it's like you're going to take the little opportunity that we're given. And the problem is like, we can't compete. We can't. Like, I'm 6 foot. If I go up against a 6 foot guy and I play basketball with him, he's going to body me.
And what happens if I go up against you?
You're gonna body me.
Even if I have years more of training. And so it's like you're taking away the little opportunity that we're given and we all work so hard for. And you're just giving it back to biological guys. It's like this will be the end of women's sports.
Have you tried confidence?
Eli, hold on, Minnie.
Sorry,
Eli.
confidence can't make me bench what a guy benches.
Confidence
can't make me
you guys
6'7".
are so hostile.
If you identify as a heavyweight lifter, then yeah, you can probably do it. Just identify as it. Have you tried confidence?
Sharing her
And confidence
experience
can't make
in
me
a specific
successful. No, she's
field.
sharing And I'd have to go.
No, she's
yeah.
not. She's a woman who's had an experience.
Hold on, one at a time.
You guys
We
are
let
so
Pearl
obsessed with your
finish.
own experiences and your own existence, and yet when a woman is sitting here telling you, I feel as though this is unfair and this is compromising and this situation is not helping women, you guys are like, meh, meh, meh. But when you're like, I'm a black person that did this, and this, then it's valid and fair and viable.
Eli, I want to give you the chance to respond.
So this is basically a joke of a talking point. Everyone has biological advantages in sports. How tall are you?
5'11" and a half. I'm tall.
I'm 5'8". I am a trans woman. You would crush me. You would absolutely crush
bone
me.
density, wrist strength, muscle density. You can't switch those.
Yeah, exactly. You would crush me.
But also, Eli, you would never play at the level that Pearl plays because you would never get there.
So let me give you a few more examples here too. So Michael Phelps produced more lactic acid in his body, which caused him to swim better than any of his competitors. This was widely celebrated, and nobody contested it. Now, this is a performance-enhancing hormone. So we all have different bodies. And now I'm not saying that trans women who aren't on hormones should participate, but there are, I mean, every major medical and every major sports organization agrees that.
You're using, whenever you hear this debate about men competing in women's sports, they will bring up these anomalies of men lacking something or women having more of something, like more testosterone, and they'll use that to justify men playing in women's sports. But if you were to survey, let's take a look at the vast majority of men versus women. Men are stronger. Their bodies are different. That's the majority.
Trans women who have been on hormones for between 1 and 3 years, depending on the organization, have the same competitive abilities.
The study that you're referencing had like 7 people participating.
Yeah. It's misinformation, by the way. I'm referencing several different studies. I'm a trans woman and a researcher.
It's getting personal. I don't want it to be personal.
A lot of us live in this space where we're told that our opinions don't count because they're not the right kind of opinions, and we're constantly shouted over and talked over regardless of what we look like, because there's one group in society that basically takes precedence, and it's frustrating. So yeah, of course, it's
So Miss Cackle Lady thinks it's funny that, as Sydney just said, if you don't have the right opinion in society, you are silenced, you are canceled, you are deplatformed. I'm going to show you something, because this was what I was saying earlier. I was scanning through this video before I decided to react to this live, and I pulled up some stuff I want you to see. This is the terms of service for TikTok. The other day I uploaded something to TikTok, right? And it got removed. I appealed it, and thankfully it was put back up. But when they took down my video, I got this notice that it was removed for attacks on the basis of protected attributes. Look at what TikTok says on their terms of service. Attacks and slurs on the basis of protected attributes. If you are an individual that falls into these categories, look at gender identity. If you're a man and you think you're a woman, and I say that trans women are men, that is hate speech against a protected attribute. Discord. You guys use Discord. Some of you, I don't anymore. Again, you cannot be mean to a protected person who has protected classifications. You can't do that. Twitter, again, same thing. So if you dig deeper into these community guidelines, you will see that they list gender identity, which means anyone who thinks they are the opposite sex and you correct them because it's not reality, that's hateful. I got the receipts, boo-boo. All right? So yes, Sydney is absolutely right. This woman that's cackling is ignorant.
When we try to talk about it, we get shouted down, we get told to be quiet, we get spoken down too as well. So
Okay,
there's hostility there for plenty of women.
Let's try to make this an opportunity to speak.
You're literally a white woman from Australia. You live in a bubble, and you're pissed that voices that have been silenced forever finally can be heard.
That's why.
I'm sorry, did I not hear this woman earlier, this badge lady, the little medallion lady? I don't even know her name, and I don't care. But did I not hear earlier that she said, why can't people accept our own personal experiences instead of trying to question the experiences we've been through? Did I not hear that earlier in this video?
I think that, like, what we're forgetting is a very important detail, which is just like human respect and dignity.
Yeah,
and not asking people to prove what their experience is.
So Sydney is saying that people who have the wrong line of thinking get shut down, their opinions are invalidated, and you're saying that she's a privileged white lady from Australia that lives in a bubble.
As an ally in places where there's no understanding, we can just respect and not really, like, our opinions don't fucking matter.
There's one group in society that basically takes precedence, and it's frustrating. So yeah, of course, it's.
As you just laughed at Sydney for saying the exact same thing.
So this is more than about sports. This is about free and equal participation for transgender people in social life. And the right sees this as a socially acceptable way to begin to remove trans people from different engagements in our society. So it does just start with sports or bathrooms or locker rooms, something that they find is more acceptable. And then at this point, they started to move into education, getting trans teachers fired, banning trans books. This is a route that is very effective because it's seen as more acceptable. But it's also overlooking a lot of major details. Like, I mean, do y'all know how many trans women have won national titles?
One too many.
One. It's Leah Thomas is the only one.
One too many.
One too many?
If women's sports were actually going to end in some way, I mean, it's just not happening. Wouldn't you think there would be more trans women in sports when the majority of states do allow trans women full participation? International titles, zero. No global titles have ever been won by a trans woman.
One too many, as Pearl is saying. You know, if I were to use the same template for this discussion and shift it to another topic, these self-ID laws where men can say that I'm a woman and go into women's spaces has increased sexual assault cases. Okay. So whenever someone presents that reality, okay, but that's not every trans woman, and so therefore it's not really a problem. These are anecdotal pieces of evidence and it's not widespread. Not even considering the fact that you have allowed that to happen, essentially creating a loophole for predatory men to go in and do that is a problem in itself. So by you saying only one trans woman has competed and won in a competition in female sports, that's not negating the reality that you have opened up the floodgates for that to happen more.
I want to move on to a different topic. I want to talk about Me Too and sort of this social movement that we're living through right now. What is the state of feminism sort of in this post-Me Too era?
We're in post-Me Too?
All right.
Tell me.
Sorry, I got distracted by the Me Too part. Because I was like, we're in post-Me Too? Wow, like, no one's getting, like, sexually harassed anymore. Like,
We did it, guys. We solved the problem.
I want that world.
So this woman is laughing at the fact that the moderator said we are in a post-Me Too movement, and then she goes on to say, oh wow, women aren't getting sexually assaulted anymore. And also this woman in the green is saying that she is in support of pro-choice, in support of abortion. When you allow this and you allow access to this, do you not think that predatory men, if we're going to say that sexual assault is a real thing that happens, do you not think that predatory men would not take advantage of the fact that a woman can have as many abortions as she wants and have other people pay for it? You want to talk about sexual assault and Me Too, but then allow men to go into a woman's space because they feel like they're a woman and not wonder if that's actually going to cause a lot of problems. You can't have both of these conversations at the same time. It doesn't work.
Obviously, the state of feminism is very much reflected right in this room. But Me Too for me, right, in a particular context, means something for different people. It's a different experience for different people. In my culture and in my community, we're still working through that. There is no post-Me Too, right? We're still working through how do we have these tough conversations? How do we teach not just, women, but everyone about consent? What does consent look like? What does that look like in our community? What does that not look like, right? All those things that I think it's still very complicated. But I think it starts at the level of community, right? Of like, how do we have these conversations around consent?
Sydney, I saw your hand up.
So when
What are we talking about? Like, when these women are talking about we need to discuss what consent looks like, what is that exactly? Because this is what I see is a big problem with the Me Too movement, is it enabled a lot of women to claim that their sexual encounters were a form of sexual assault, but in reality, a lot of situations are just women regretting the fact that they had a sexual encounter in the first place. So what exactly is there to get to the bottom of when we're talking about consent? Because if you don't want to have sex with someone, you just say, I don't want to have sex with you. So what exactly are you exploring in terms of what does consent look like? Just say, I don't want to sleep with you. Done. What is there else to talk about?
The Me Too thing was unfolding. I was initially like, great, I love the idea of women being able to speak out. What's been really disappointing, I suppose, for me, post-Me Too, as we're calling it, is that, and especially as someone who's sort of on the right wing of politics, I think that a lot of the experiences of women on the right get a bit trivialized because there is a lot of politicizing of sexual assault. So when something legitimately happens on our side of the table and someone tries to speak up about it, there's almost an automatic disbelief. And I understand why. It's because of the believe all women type of stuff that came out of the Me Too movement, that a lot of us were like, wait a minute, no, people do use these situations for gain. People do make things up. People do lie. But it is sad to watch it happen. It makes me sad that we're here.
When a woman on the right gets sexually assaulted, the left tends to scoff at it because the right are usually the folks that will say, no, there is no believe all women. We believe evidence. We believe in a fair trial. We don't believe in canceling someone or accusing someone of sexual assault before fully investigating it. And that is a reasonable approach to take. So because that opposition to believe all women tends to be more on the right, when sexual assault actually occurs on the right, now it gives the left an opportunity to say, look at you. I thought you said not believe all women. You weren't really raped. That didn't really happen. Yeah, I don't believe all women. I believe in investigating to see what the truth is. The worst things that came out of the Me Too is it empowered women to either, I see this often, seek revenge on men that they don't like, or pass off their regret as rape.
The fatter I get, the older I get, the less people will listen to me, the less value I will have for society. So, you know, I'm already starting out as a woman with no legs. If I had something on my face, I have my beauty. That's one of my privileges. I have my whiteness. That's one of my privileges. I used to have thinness, and now I'm getting fatter. Things are changing. And I think every single time that we talk about feminism, pretty privilege should be discussed, because we have these ideas. If your skin tone is this, if your hair is this, if your body looks like that, it's about whether or not you are given an equal opportunity based on what you look like.
Okay, these are two separate conversations. So this woman is saying that as I get older, I age, I'm fatter, I have a disability, my value in society goes down. If we're talking about in the terms of like the workforce or just providing value in a generalized standpoint to society, that comes down to not looks. I don't think it comes down to looks. I think it comes down to what your human capital is. What can you offer to society? Because there are a lot of people, I follow them on social media, that have disabilities, but they have these amazing careers because they worked with what they have. So if we're saying that your value is going down because you are not ticking off these check boxes that society identifies as beautiful, I think the question that I would toss back is, okay, then why are you encouraging women to not have discipline, not have self-responsibility, to sleep with whoever they want, to have as many abortions as they want? Why are you advocating for that? And then on the other side of it, you're saying that a lot of women do not have any value in society. To me, what you described by saying women shouldn't have discipline and self-accountability, that lacks value. There's no value in that. I don't think anyone on this panel, I would say, in my opinion, is ugly. Their attitudes are hideous. And that is actually what devalues someone more than what you look on the outside. But that's just my opinion.
I think a lot of times the women that complain about beauty standards don't complain about them when they got privilege, when they were young and attractive and thin. So it's like, yeah, you're complaining when the privilege is gone, but privilege is invisible to those who have it. And women, it's a privilege. And men don't turn 18 and get looks that we get.
As a Black woman, one of the most integral parts of the beauty conversation has been colorism. I'm a dark-skinned Black woman, proud of it and proud of being myself. For the most part, I did not. Why am I gonna cry about this?
Don't cry, girl.
I did not grow up thinking I was beautiful because I was that. And I think in the Black space, we have these conversations, but I think I'm glad I bring it up because I think feminists actually really should be part of the colorism topic, because colorism is not just shades within being Black, it's shades because again, the beauty standard is the closer to whiteness you are, the more beautiful you are. I think it's something that if more people in different shades, particularly white women, because of knowing that standard, and we work together on that, then we have a lot, I think, something we can unify on, but also something that we can make strides in right now that I'm just not seeing. And it's only, again, that's why people feel like you have to be a Black feminist. Because
Okay, let me stop right there because that's going on for a little bit. So let me say this. Colorism, if you don't know what that is, that's like if I stood next to another Black person and that Black person said, you're not Black enough, you don't act in this way, you know, you're less than a Black person because of your behavior, because of the way that you think, because you don't fit the criteria of what a Black person is. So you could say that it's racism, but again, apparently Black people can't be racist to each other. So whatever, I digress, right? And I heard that all the time when I was growing up, all the time. People would always criticize me. Other Black people would criticize me on how I looked. And then a few years ago, when I got canceled by Black Twitter, I had 100 people, more than 100, lots of people in my mentions saying, you hate yourself, you hate your skin color, you hate Black women, you're anti-Black, misogynoir, all these weird words. And it did hurt me. It honestly hurt me because I heard that throughout my life. And then when I go online and I have the wrong opinion, I start getting called these same things from a bunch of strangers on the internet. And that's hurtful. That's hurtful to deal with your entire life. But now, by the grace of God, I'm not upset about that anymore. I'm not fazed by that. Now I look at it through the lens of, wow, I have empathy for these people because they really believe that. They really believe that we can measure someone else's worth based on what shade of skin tone you have. And they're really arguing over these things that don't really matter in the grand scheme of it all. I get where she's coming from, but also it's not making any sense by saying we should come together and we should all unite on this, because what you're asking for is for people to be nice to you. And while that would be ideal, it would be great. That would be a perfect world. But guess what? We live in a fallen world, and that's never going to happen. So from my perspective, the best thing that anyone can do, whether you're complaining about colorism, you're complaining about racism, sexism, whatever it is, the best thing that you can do is to keep going. Build that emotional resilience. Keep going. Accept that people aren't always going to say nice things about you. Doesn't matter. Does not matter. Keep going.
Because it's a topic that only really Black feminists are talking about because it deals with being Black.
Beauty standards are toxic bullshit hierarchical nonsense. And I say that as someone who has spent over a year collectively of my life in eating disorder institutions, because I have tried to put my body through hellish things to meet these beauty standards, which more often than not are not based in reality. They're typically trends, they're created to push things, they're extremely useful for marketing, but they don't serve anyone's health, they don't serve anyone's self-esteem, they only act to try and tell us that there's a allegedly right way to have a body, and if you don't occupy that space and have that body, then you're a piece of shit, which is absolute nonsense. And
are we talking, okay, because there's a lot of things that I could reference for this segment right here. So this person is saying that they have suffered from eating disorders, trying to achieve a standard of beauty. Are we talking about having a healthy body? Because it is logical to want to not suffer from morbid obesity. This is why I hate this whole fat phobia, body positivity trend. I hate it because you're encouraging people to slowly kill themselves. If you want to eat, just say you want to eat. The concern is the fact that we are parading obesity off as something that is healthy. It's not. But I will say what they mentioned about beauty standards, to a certain degree, you can kind of see it if you like go on Instagram, for example. A lot of women look the same. I don't know if you've ever realized this. Like, just look at the Kardashians for a second, all right? You guys know the Kardashians. Why do they all look the same? Have the same types of makeup and hair, and it's like this standard Instagram model template. To that, I would say, yeah, I think there is a very unhealthy standard of beauty, which ironically is taking away from people's beauty because you're plastering a bunch of makeup on your face. You might have a filter. You might need to do special angles and all that stuff. This is why, for me, I go back and forth from wearing makeup on my stream to, looking like I just rolled out of bed. I have to keep a balance. But there are some people that will never show themselves without makeup and without a filter. And that, to me, is feeding into whatever society says is our beauty standards. Now, again, I think that is one specific conversation. But then I think the other part of it is a lot of women will actively try to make themselves look ugly and then say, well, you're just sexist because you don't think I'm beautiful.
There are way too many women and men in the world who end up doing terrible things to themselves because they fall into this trap of thinking that you have to be this way. And if you aren't this way, then there's something inherently wrong at your core, which is nonsense. You're perfect the way you are. That's literally the core of it.
No one is perfect the way that they are. No one. I literally just said that. No one is perfect the way that you are. No one. You guys suck. Everyone here sucks. I love you, but you probably could improve something about your life. I think it is so dangerous to say you are perfect the way that you are.
You are perfect the way you are. And anyone who tries to tell you otherwise is feeding into this industry and is just, they are not your friend or looking out for you.
Wrong.
No.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, yeah, beauty in the industry is exploitative. But also we have to remember a lot of the beauty standards are based around health, what's perceived as health, like symmetry, certain weights, things like that. So there is that side where we have to balance it. And I think we're seeing so much more representation, which I think is incredibly important.
Well, I just think that, like, if women really cared about beauty standards, like, the obesity rate wouldn't be what it is.
Bruh. Yeah, if women cared about beauty standards, the obesity rate would not be as high as it is. Oh, man.
I mean, I just think, like, some people are more attractive, some people are less attractive, and that's just, where would I rate myself?
Even if you hate the fact that society has this sort of natural, unspoken standard of beauty, it is what it is, right? But if someone truly believes that they are ugly, right? I get told I'm ugly all the time by strangers online, okay? But if someone truly believes that they're ugly, guess what? That's not the end all be all. You can make up for that by having a beautiful personality. But if you have ugly exterior, ugly interior, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know.
1 to 10. Like,
we're not rating. It's okay.
That's what I mean. Like, I just think, like, some people are more attractive.
So if you are overweight, you don't care about beauty standards.
Well,
is that right?
The point is that the beauty standard is thin, right?
Your standard?
But obesity comes from men and women, though.
Yeah, you're right. That's true. But I'm saying if women really wanted to fit the beauty standard, they would be thin.
I know. From my experience as well, is growing up, again, in a mostly white neighborhood but I was always comparing myself to literally other people who have a different body type, but I was considered other or to something because it didn't conform to that body type.
You know what I'm hearing as I'm listening to all this entire conversation? I hear insecurity. I hear other people see women as beautiful, but they don't see me as beautiful. My body isn't like that. I don't fit that standard of beauty. So let's redefine the standard of beauty, which is never going to happen. You're never going to be able to redefine what someone else views as beautiful. So you are left with having to accept yourself. Because that's all this conversation is. And to be perfectly honest with you, as I said, a lot of this comes down to mindset because someone who is confident, not cocky and pompous, all right, but someone who is confident in themselves and they're secure with themselves, that's beautiful. I love that. It's infectious. I would rather not be around people that are always like, oh, I'm ugly. I don't fit that standard. Wow, look at everyone else. They're so thin. They're able bodies. It's not a cute trait to always victimize yourself. And I don't think redefining beauty standards is going to make you more secure in your body. That is equity right there, by the way. Eliminate the beauty standard or redefine it to accommodate people who are insecure in their own bodies. Okay?
I know this is, it got a little heated at times, but thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So Eli, the guy with the gray hair that says he's a woman, Eli, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this person, but a few months ago, they went viral because they were publicly, illegally distributing altering drugs to minors. So pretty much like the gender, like the hormones and all that stuff that you give to people that want to transition into the opposite body, which you can never do. You can only emulate. But they were providing these drugs and they were posting on Instagram, I will ship these drugs to you illegally. And apparently that was brought up in this conversation. You can see Sydney right here saying, I'm curious why they cut the footage of me saying this to Eli, bringing up the fact that Eli was sending out drugs to minors. What Vice is interested in is platforming only the opinions and ideas that make them look good, to make the woke look good. This feminist, trans, whatever stuff. I have empathy for these people because they don't see it. Or maybe they see it and they don't care because an emotional person doesn't think about long term, like, how is this going to come back at me? I don't believe in karma, right? I believe in God. And I know that darkness does not win. It will never win. Oh, here's a good one from Proverbs chapter 4:19. But the way of the wicked is like total darkness. They have no idea what they are stumbling over. Think about those feminists we saw. Women should sexually liberate, have as many abortions as they want, have sex and have no consequences as a result. Who cares? And then they're also saying that women are oppressed. The way of the wicked is like total darkness. They have no idea why they're stumbling. They have no clue. Thanks for watching. If you want to keep my grift going, consider picking up some official merch by visiting nosisnos.com/Gothix or joining my locals community at gothix.locals.com for more content. As always, you can help amplify my message by giving this video a thumbs up and by sharing it online with your friends. Until next time.